In this session, we will be working on some of the Hadoop HDFS commands. In this session, we will be working on HDFS commands. So before we start working on different commands on HDFS, what I would like to show you all is when you start Hadoop internally, what happens. Now let us start Hadoop. Now, as we all know, in order to start Hadoop, the command is start-all.sh, start-all.sh. Now before that, what I'll do is I'll check how many processes are running behind. Now I have only one process being run, so we'll start Hadoop now. So again, as we have learned in the previous session, in order to start only HDFS, the command is start-dfs.sh. So you can give start-all.sh, or if you wanted to only start HDFS, you can say start-dfs.sh. Now if you say start-dfs.sh, you would see only 3 daemons being run which belong to HDFS. One is name node, one is data node, and third one is the secondary name node. Now let me check whether the process are running. Yes, the process are running. Now if you observe, when we are installing Hadoop, we have done some changes in the configuration files of Hadoop. We have downloaded Hadoop version and untarred it, and once you untarred, you got a folder which is called as conf folder, inside which we had many configuration files, but out of which we have done some changes on 5 files. They are core-site.xml, hdfs-site.xml, hadoop env.sh, and master and slave files. So let me get to that particular folder. Either I can click on this home, or I can go to computer, which both of them take you to the same place, home. Yes, so Hadoop, in which I have created a folder called work folder, so in which this is what I am talking about. Now once you click on this, you will see a folder called conf folder. Amongst these files, we have worked on core site, and we have worked on HDFS site, we have worked on env.sh, we have worked on mapret, and we have worked on masters and slave. Now let us open. Keep the control button pressed and select all the files, right click and say open with gedit. It's a genome editor. It's an editor where you can view the contents of a file. Now if you look at core-site.xml, yes, these are certain properties that we have updated. So we have two properties. One is to say that this is an RPC port for this particular local host, and which talks about the name node, and also whatever that you do on a name node, whatever the data that you will stored on the local file system, that would be stored on this particular location. So what I'll do is we'll check whether this folder has been created or not, because already we have started HDFS. Now this is one of the folders where you have set the Java path. Now what I'll do is first of all, okay, we'll start with core-site.xml, and then we will make some changes in hadoop env.sh and also see what happens. Now HDFS site, which talks about again the name node and the data node, okay, and the factor of replication, yes, its minimum is 1, by default we'll say it is as 3, and it can be extended to 512 replications, but based on the requirement, we would do, as we are doing a pseudo distributed mode, we are installing Hadoop on a pseudo distributed mode, so we are doing only 1 replication for this. So again, we have some temporary files being stored on this particular location. Now when you go to mapret, again we have some RPC, okay, which talks about the local host. When you look at the core here, the difference, okay, I want to show you the difference here. What I'll do is I'll bring exactly mapret right here. Now these being core, we are saying that core talks about the name node, some of the properties which talk about the name node, and also mapret talks about the job tracker and also the task tracker. So job tracker, as we have learned in Hadoop architecture, job tracker is also a name node, also a master node. So name node and job tracker, we call these two processes as the master process. But when you look at the difference in the properties, now this talks about the file system of name node, and we have a value HDFS localhost 9000. So this is where all your data would be stored, HDFS, and the RPC port is 9000. But when you look at mapred-site.xml, we have some other value. So here we are following a syntax, we call it as a protocol here, but whereas here it's only for the processing. When you click at mapred-site.xml, it's only a processing mode. So localhost, as we have know, which is the localhost we have in master and slave, or else you can also specify 127.0.0.1, whatever your localhost's value is. So but here we are not specifying any protocol here, so it simply says localhost 9000 on. So whatever it could be localhost, that is my here, because we are doing everything on a single system, localhost is same for MapReduce. But if you are doing this process on a different machine, then localhost would be said. The point to remember here is, here we do have a protocol, but whereas here we do not have any. Okay, right. Again, the second property talks about again the same local file system, temporary directories, and we also have something called as system directory under mapred directory. So we will see, and when you click on master and slaves, you will have localhost, or as I said, you can also type in but 2027.0.0.1, and but for here we are mentioning a localhost name. We also have seen the localhost name before. If any changes can be done, you also can be done on right here. So now this is when you go to Hadoop env.sh, this is the first file that would be invoked when you start Hadoop. Remember, this is the first file that would be invoked when you start Hadoop. If you say something, let us say we are not doing anything in the bash RC, we have also set the Hadoop home, Java home in bash RC file as well. What I'll do is I will keep I'll comment this line, export java underscore me is equal to the path, and I will save it. So but before that, what should be I doing is I should be stopping all the process. To stop all the process, the command is not all we have started, we have only started 3 process. So let me say stop dfs.sh. now say stopping name node, stopping data node, it's a local host, yes, stopping secondary name node, that's it. So now to check whether everything, yes, everything is clear now. Now what I have done is I have did something, I have commented this line, of Java home, one of the environment variables in Hadoop env.sh file. So I saved them, and what I'll do is again I'll start let's see what happens. So this time what I'll do is I'll say start hyphen all.sh. Yes, if you observe, it says starting name node, but there is an error which says Java home is not set. For every node being started but down, that you have an error message clearly shown, Java home is not set. But it says starting. Let me see whether they have started. But if you see here, name node being started and job tracker being started, but we don't have this two things, secondary name node and data node. So we cannot see anything which is secondary or the data node being started. So what we have to do is, for this, let us uncomment this and save this. Now what I'll do is stop hyphen all.sh, start hyphen all.sh, stopping the job tracker, yes, stopping the name node, because these two are the node that's got started. Now let us see again, I'll execute the command start yes, using arrow keys, start hyphen all.sh, but this time we don't see that error message. So that's the difference we can see here. Let me clear the screen and say JPS. Yes, we have all the nodes coming up without any problem. So that's what. So if you have anything, if you see that anything that is not got started, then these are the places that we have to. So whenever you see an error, Java home is not set, the first place that we have to check is Hadoop env.sh. Now let me clear the screen. Now we have amongst these files, and we have seen that there are certain paths that we have values that we have created, and we'll see whether these directories have been created or not. Under work, we should be having something called as Hadoop Data. So what I'll do is I'll go here and yes, so conf folder, and under work, and yes, you see this directory Hadoop Data. If you look at here, now this is, let me check in core-site dot, yes, so this is the Hadoop Data. So now let me open that, inside which I have something called as temp. So something called as temp. Now DFS, name node, secondary, current, click on, you'll see edit and FS. This is what the content of a name node. So when we are studying about the architecture of Hadoop, we have seen that name node is a place where you will have the metadata. Metadata again is a combination of edit logs and FSMA. So here, let me try to open this. Let me open this. Yes, so the problem in file. So this is how either you can view the edit log. So let me close this. Okay, and now let me open the FS image as well. Let's see. Could not display SFS image. So these are the things that administrator would be working on. But as a developer, these are the places that you have to to be in touch with, so that whenever someone asks you, what is that? Yes, now here we have something called as MapRed. Everything is we have created under the now this folder. And similarly, when you look at HDFS, again we have the DFS name. So that's where again Hadoop. So every time whenever you run, so we have DFS inside name folder we have, and again DFS we have something called as data. So these are the folder which belong to the name node and the data node. So let me open this data node. Now when you open this data node, you have some other folders coming up under data folder or the data directory. Now again if you look at the MapRed inside, the default was MapRed, in which we have something called as local. So yes, we have Hadoop Data, under which we have MapRed, and we have under local. So you see task tracker and user log. So these are the places where you can, if you have any problem with the MapRed, or any problem with the name node or the data node or the MapRed use, so these are the certain places that we would be looking at and we would be checking. Okay, now what I'll do is, so we have seen that this Hadoop Data folder is being created automatically. Now before that, what I'll do is I'll let me check whether all the process are running. Yeah, so let me stop all .sh. Let me stop all the process now. This is how we would be working on, we'll get a feel working on HDFS. So we have also learned that almost all the Unix commands would work on HDFS, and not all Unix, but almost 85% I would say the commands would work on HDFS. Reason being, we have installed HDFS on top of Linux. So now what I'll do is, so everything is stopped. Let me check. Yes, there is nothing out here. Now let me clear the screen. Now let me close all the files. Yes, all the files are being closed. Now what I'll do is, I'll go to this, I'll go to work folder, and here what I'll do, I'll delete this folder. So right click to delete a folder, keep the cursor on that folder, right click and go down, and you will have an option which says move to trash. click on it. Yes, we have moved that to the trash. Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll start hyphen all dot sh. I'll start hyphen all dot sh, or else before starting what I'll do is I'll run a command with all the commands that I worked on before. So before starting anything, what I'll do is okay. Yes. Let me format the name node because I have deleted that particular. So now, yes, successfully name node has been formatted successfully. Now let me start hyphen or dfs dot sh. Let me start yes. Okay, now let us check whether those directories have been created. The command that I used is dfs.sh. So if I say dfs, yes, Hadoop Data is created. So when I say dfs, only the dfs related or HDFS related folder should be created. So here under temp you don't have any further commands, further directories which belong to map radios. So what I'll do is now instead of JPS, yes, what I'll do, start mapred dot sh. Yeah, so when I say mapred dot sh, now two processes being run. So now if you look at the same directory, I will see some more, this directory being created. Okay, this is how you can have a hands-on practice on how this be created. Now once you start Hadoop, if you wanted to view the name node web interface, so localhost colon 50070, as we have been saying, instead of localhost you can also have the address typed in there. Yes, now when you look at the web UI of localhost, now if you see some of the information being displayed, so this is when it has got started and what is the version that we are using, compiled and upgrades. So this is today's date and this is the version. Now you have two options down here. One is browse the file system and the name node logs, and this is the cluster summary. So this is the DFS used, non-DFS used, DFS remaining, non-DFS, how many live nodes are there, how many dead nodes, and decommissioning of the nodes. So we'll also look at what is the commissioning and decommissioning. How can you add some nodes onto the cluster? That process is called the commissioning. And how can you remove some of the machines out of the cluster? That process is called as decommissioning. So commissioning is a process where you add some of the nodes onto the cluster, and decommissioning is a process where you will delete or take away some of the machines from the cluster. Now if you look at the storage directory, this is the temporary directory that we have mentioned in core and HDFS Site.xml files. So this is a little information about the name node web UI. But let me click on this browse files. Now we have one created as the MapRed, so inside which we have the system, and this is how you have the files being created, and name node logs, right. So these are the name node logs. So if you look at the name node logs, that's the information that you have about the data nodes and the job tracker, yes. So and the task tracker, secondary name node. So if you wanted to check any of the log files, you can click on it. So this is how your data log looks like, this is how your data log looks like, and yes. So here if you look at starting the data node, and you have something called as opening the listener on 50075. So there is one more RPC, HTTP port. This is not an RPC, HTTP, which talks about something else. So let me also check that. Instead of 70, what we'll be doing is we're typing 75, and let us check what happens. Okay, now it says, I'm sorry, let us DFS localhost. So it says not from, okay. Now what I'll do is here, name node secondary, and this is how you can now enter the browse file system. So you have one directory called as MapRed, in which we have called as system. Okay, so this is how you can access a web UI of Hadoop distributed name node. Now we can get into so many things when it comes to the internals of HDFS. So before learning all of those things, what I would like to introduce is few of the commands that we would be working on, HDFS or Hadoop distributed file system. So as we have been saying that there are certain Unix commands that also would be working on HDFS. So as we all know, we start with the first command is how to make a directory. To make a directory, the command is mkdir. But how do we execute this command in HDFS? So if I say make a directory, mkdir with name Naveen, okay, yes, I don't see any error message. Let me see whether I have created this directory been created or not. Yes, I have the directory been created. But if you observe here, all these are created on a local file system. But if you wanted to create the same directory on HDFS, if you wanted to create everything, all these directories on HDFS, so we have to start all the HDFS commands, all the Hadoop commands with the word Hadoop and file system hyphen make directory and any path. If you wanted to give directly here, yes, you can create a directory called as Naveen, okay, and let me see. Yes, so now here what I'll do is dir or ls is to list the commands, or dir to display directories. But when you look at, okay, what I'll do is instead of Naveen, what I'll do, I'll say it as Naveen1. Okay, yes, here you go. Right, now to list the commands in Unix and Linux is ls is the command to list the files and directories. But we have here Naveen directory, which we have created previously, but we don't have Naveen1 here because it's been created on virtually on HDFS. So how can I see where this directory has been created? Yes, you have to go to open the web browser and simply say 500 and you'll get Hadoop administration page here. Yes, now click on browse file system and see here you have something called as user, in which, yes, so you have created Naveen, and Naveen 1 directory is being created. But if you look at, whenever you create any directory, those directories all would be by default would be stored under user directory. So user and Hadoop is the home directory, the root directory under which you have created. So anything using HDFS, if you wanted to look at where my directories have been created, simply you have to come open the web UI of the name node and click on the browse file system, in which you will see some of the information, what are the different directories that you have created. Or else directly I can also say like this, so make a directory under user, and yeah, so now I want to use, if I want to use it, that's well and good, or Naveen 2. Let me see. Yes, so let me click on the browse user Hadoop. Right, we have Naveen 2. So the owner is Hadoop and the group is super group. And if you see, there are certain permissions here, RWX, R-X, R-X, and we would be talking about more about file and directory permissions, such as how to change the group, how to change the mod, and how to change the permissions. So we would be taking a different session on this. It's very important, but all you have to understand is every file and a directory in HDFS or Hadoop can be set with certain permissions. Here we will be talking about this particularly permissions concept maybe in the coming sessions. Okay, so now here you have, yes, so all these directories you can view on your name node web UI. So I have a directory that's been created, as I told you that in order to view any files, or directories, you can have command is ls in Hadoop. So I want to see what are the directories that I have under this user. Yes, in this user I have something called as Hadoop. These two under user I have only Hadoop. So, and if I wanted to see what do that I have inside Hadoop, so yes, inside Hadoop I have Naveen 1 and Naveen 2. But the way it displays, the way I used ls in Unix, Linux or Ubuntu is different from the displaying of the contents of any of the files or directories in Hadoop is different. If you look at how it displays it displays with, this talks about the permissions, this talks about the who is the user, and this talks about the group, and all this talks about the timestamp and when it's got created, and who is what are the the address of a particular file. So we'll be talking about all these permissions and the super groups in the coming session. So ls is the command to view or display the files or the directories in a particular directories. Now we have something called as lsr. Now let us see what. So I'll be using arrow key instead of using typing the entire command. What I'll do is lsr, it same lsr we have that in Unix. So now let us see what happens. So now you don't see any difference between. Now what I'll do, okay, ls and lsr, okay, right, okay, so this is lsr and this is ls. So it's now yeah, so if you look at, you don't see any much difference in lsr and ls. So you will be looking at one of the differences that has ls and lsr when you have a large amount of data inside a directory. Okay, now what I'll do is we'll try to, we have seen how to create a directory and how to list the content of the directories. And what we'll do is we'll try to create a file here. We'll try to create a file. To create a file, we have the command touch command is the command to create a file. So Hadoop file system hyphen TOU, have to be a little careful, TOUCHZ, and you have to give the path. So let me give the path as user Naveen, okay, and let me name the file as xyz dot whatever, xyz.txt. So now, so the idea here is whether command, to learn the command is to create a file, touch is the command. So let me go for Hadoop Web UI. So inside user you have Naveen, and in here we have hdf xyz.txt. Now let me open it. You don't have anything else, it's an empty file. Okay, this is how you can create a file. This is how you can create a file. Now let me go further. Let me clear the screen. The next command we are going to learn is the cat command. Now cat command is to view the contents of a file. So to view the content of a file is the cat command. So any file that you have, and if you wanted to see the file's content, then you will be using a command called cat command. So cat command is same as Unix cat command. You have a file on a particular location. If you wanted to view the content of that particular file, we would be using cat command.